Hey folks, Lenny Lawson here, the car guru. One of the things I've had to really work hard adjusting to is to go from thinking young and feeling young to thinking young and hurting everywhere. But hopefully that's going to be short-lived. Well, I'll still hurt probably everywhere, but my hip won't hurt. So tomorrow I go to a different doctor. I had my hip replaced about a year and 4 months ago. And I'm one of those rare people where the bone just doesn't grow around the prosthesis like it's supposed to. The piece that sticks down inside your femur, that big bone in your upper leg. And so it just didn't do what it's supposed to do. Shame on my bone. So now I basically have pain, not when I'm sitting here right now, but just when I get up, it'll hurt. And when I walk, most of the time on flat ground, it's okay. But if I try to go uphill or downhill, because basically that prosthesis or prosthetic is not really rattling around in there because the very bottom third of it, I think, is had some bone growth around it. But it's moving, and it hurts. So I'm going to see this different doctor, not the doctor who did the original surgery. He's offered to fix it, but I want to go to a guy who specializes in fixing them. They call him a revisionist. So he's going to slice it open, get that bad one out, and put a new one in. And it's going to have to be bigger so that I won't have this pain. Sometimes you just wonder, well, is it worth it? Is it, the recovery and all that stuff is pretty extended. And then what if it doesn't work? Will it hurt worse? So I'm not excited about it. I am putting it off. I'm going to go see him and see what he has to say. But, as far as the revision is concerned, because my other doctor said, well, Lenny, this procedure is a whole lot worse because we got to cut you open through your side. The other one they went through and they didn't have to cut any muscle. This time he says we're going to have to cut muscle. Well, this other doctor says, no, we can do it the anterior way. Just go back in the way he went in before. Well, that sounds better to me, but why would the other guy say, no, you can't do it that way. You got to go through, do it the more painful way. Cut through some muscle. I don't have that much muscle back there anymore anyway, but I just soon am not cut through it. So it's hard. It's hard when you get two different opinions on the same problem, what it's going to take to fix it. People go through this all the time with their cars if they get a second opinion. Do you believe in second opinions on a major repair? How do you go about getting one? Your car is in a service department. It's all torn down, and they're telling you that it needs a new engine. And so how do you do that? How do you work that? You're just a person. You work at a florist. You don't know anything about cars. All you know about is flowers. And these people are telling you that you have to spend $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 on a new engine. No, of course not. You're not under warranty. That would be too easy. No, this is on you, and you don't have the money to pay for it. I'd certainly get a second opinion. And here's how you get one. Well, there's really two ways. One, you can call me, 423-552-2020. I'm not going to go, let's say you listen to the podcast and you're in Montana. I'm not going to Montana to help you with this. I will call the shop and see what's really going on and try to come up with a solution. However, I just can't be there. If you're within 100 miles of here, I'm not leaving the comfort of my office to go into somebody else's shop and second guess what they're trying to do. I will make a phone call. I will find out what the facts are. I'll check your VIN number. I'll see if there are any open recalls, if there are any service bulletins. They call them technical service bulletins on your particular problem. Just think about all those people that own General Motors trucks right now. Chevrolets, Silverados, and GMC Sierras, And also, all of their big SUVs, the Tahoe, all of anything that uses a 6.2 liter V8 might need a new engine. It's kind of like Toyota last year. They're still replacing engines on Toyotas because of, some bad machining. And that's what they're thinking. I believe on the GM vehicles, they think the bearings that basically the crankshaft in the heart of the engine rides on these metal bearings, and that the bearings are failing and disintegrating, basically, and causing metal to get loose and run free, wreak havoc throughout the rest of the engine. And so the engine fails, and you got to get it replaced. Who's paying for that? Well, thank goodness General Motors is. And so they're also having to do a stop sale on a lot of vehicles that are in inventory. So if you want to buy a truck, you need to come buy a Ford, because at this point, we don't have to replace any engines. I don't think we're going to have to, but you never know. I mean, you never know when some supplier or there's some situation in a plant where a machine fails or a human fails, or the materials that the actual bearing fails, which is provided by a supplier. These things can happen. Just like, I guess, prosthesis in my hip can fail. What am I supposed to do? Well, I'm doing what I can do. I'm getting second opinions. And let me tell you another way here right after this break that you can get a good second opinion. Okay, so they've got your engine torn down in a shop, and they say you need a new engine. So how do you get a second opinion? Well, what you do, here's what you do. You call your insurance agent, and you say, who do you guys use for adjusting claims? Like, especially if there's an engine problem, like an expert for an engine claim. Who do you call? Because typically in just about every market, there is a company, and they're independent of the insurance companies. Not all of them, but they're independent. Some of them, like State Farm and Farm Bureau, have in-house adjusters, but there are other companies that use independent adjusters. And many times they have experts in engines, because, if something's wrong and the insurance company is going to have to pay for it, it could be a warranty company, for example, that sends in an adjuster. Those people work on commission. They're like hired guns. And you're going to have to hire them to go in and check out this engine. How much does that cost? Well, it can cost anywhere from $250 to $500. But when you compare that to the size of the repair bill, that's not too bad. Another alternative for getting a second opinion on a major repair is just to go to an independent shop or go to a car dealership. A new car dealership is going to be more reluctant to go into another car dealership to find out. But, if you hire an independent, he can put on street clothes, and he can go in there and he can snoop around. Say, this is my buddy. He knows a lot about cars, and he just wants to look at my engine for a second opinion. Will you let us do that? Are they going to like that? Probably not. It's your car, though, and it's your decision, and you just have to be bold about it. And really, that's no different from taking somebody with you to help you buy a car. You know what we call them in the car business? We call them quarterbacks. Yeah, the quarterback is that neighbor or uncle or somebody that has traded cars a lot, and they're supposedly an expert, or they're financial wizards, and you just want somebody to go in with you and look at the numbers. I think this is a great idea if you have no experience at this. I mean, there are some people that should absolutely not walk into a car dealership to buy a car without a quarterback, especially if they've never bought one before. I can hear parents saying, well, they've got to learn some way. No, they don't. The best way to learn is with an experienced person so they can watch it happen the first few times. But how experienced is this person? Is this uncle that you're taking with you? Has he bought 4 or 5 cars in his lifetime? Does he really know anything about cars, or does he just act like he does? Does he own a 57 Chevy? And just because he owns a 57 Chevy, you think that he knows everything about modern technology on vehicles, and he probably doesn't. That's why, you need to take somebody that knows their stuff. The quality of your repair or the quality of your decision, whether it has to do with a repair or a purchase of a new vehicle, depends a lot on the quality of your quarterback and how much they know. So what's going to happen if you take your quarterback into the shop? Well, you're going to go in and you're going to ask to speak. Well, first you're going to call and tell the service advisor that you would like an appointment with the service manager to go and review your repair with your friend who you're bringing along with you. And they may say, well, who's your friend? Say, well, that really doesn't matter. He is my friend, and he's willing to go in and look at this vehicle. If they get smart with you, like, what does he know? That kind of stuff. I would go up the food chain, go speak to the general manager of the dealership. I don't do well in my old age with attitudes. Do you? Somebody gets really defensive. It is your money, your car. They're asking you to spend it with them. You are a customer. You're not a prisoner. They are not your captors. And you and your car have not been kidnapped. This is a fact-finding mission. That's all it is. And, you may have a pretty tough timetable here. If you can't afford a rental car, if you don't have any warranty coverage or anything like that, no extended warranty coverage, you're kind of at the mercy of the business, and I get that. If you can afford to if you can borrow a car from a friend, it's just it gets so urgent. You know what I'm saying? And everybody gets in a big hurry, and we just settle. And maybe if you could extend it just a couple days and survive this, you can get a better answer. And just like any time you have an engine failure, you don't always have to replace the engine. Sometimes a complete wholesale replacement of the engine is not the best option. Sometimes it's easier. Shops like to do that because they can just order a replacement engine and it comes on a crate in a couple of days. And then in a couple more days, they have it in there and it's running and you can come pick it up. There is a value towards expediency, getting it done quickly. I understand that. And plus, if you replace a complete engine through somebody like Jasper Engines or somebody like that, then you get a warranty with it. So there are these trade-offs, but you've got to know what they are. What's the other option is to do a rebuild and to find out, what does the thing really need to be operational? What's the least amount of money that I can spend to get a reliable result? I guess that's the question. You don't want to take shortcuts with an engine. If they're not sure that, replacing certain components in the engine, getting an overhaul of the engine is going to be the best solution, then, maybe you're at the wrong place. Most dealerships send that stuff out anyway. We don't completely overhaul engines at Gateway. We tear them down. We completely disassemble them, and then we send the block and the heads out to a machine shop. We don't have a machine shop here. We have to send those components out. But in that regard, we're not unlike any other dealership. I don't know any dealerships that operate their own machine shop, nor do any independent shops do that. We all have to sublet. That's what it's called. We have to sublet certain types of operations to outside vendors. But the service manager or service advisor can put together all these two different scenarios and all the different components of it, price it to you, tell you what your warranty is going to be. Like if you have an engine rebuild in a dealership or an independent shop and they do it themselves, they do the tear down, they send it out, the warranty is probably going to be limited to 90 days to 1 year. Now, the advantage of doing it through the dealership is they'll cover parts and labor. If you like buy an engine from, one of the auto parts store like Advance or O'Reilly or something like that, and they ship it to the dealership, or from Jasper, somebody like that. If they ship it to the dealership and it's installed and it fails, many times they won't cover labor of taking it out and putting another one back in. They'll just cover the cost of the engine. And that labor can be expensive. I mean, you're probably talking about, $1,000 to $1,500 just to pull one out and put another one in. So you need advice. When I was having heart issues, it's always handy to have a doctor in the family, and my brother is a doctor. Matter of fact, he is a retired cardiologist. And we've had a lot of serious conversations. When my doctor says, well, this doesn't sound right, you've got a blockage, you've got a high calcium score, or whatever, the first call I make is to him. What do you think about this? He tells me, and at least I know the facts. The problem is that, like a lot of people, when they go to the doctor, they don't ask enough questions. And if the doctor says, we need to do this, they say, okay, instead of saying, well, tell me why we need to do that. What is the reason behind this? And it's just like, with a car dealership. You need to have that expert with you or somebody that you can consult before you make a major decision. Now, if you have a lot of faith in the owner of the business, the service advisors, the service manager, you have a long-term trusting relationship with them, then maybe you don't need to shop around. This is for you folks who bounce around. Your loyalty is very, very thin, and you don't have a car guy that works at a car dealership that you really feel good about. And I think that's a big mistake for most car buyers. I think they abandon a really good brand. For example, let's say you just love Buicks, and you get great service from that Buick dealership, and all the people that work there in the service drive, the salesperson, you feel comfortable there. Oh, but then you see some kind of an advertisement for a Hyundai. You say, I'm going to go try one of those out. And then you do, and now you got to go to the Hyundai store. You don't know anybody. And then all of a sudden, the engine comes out of the Hyundai, which that happens a lot. And you're beating yourself up because I should have just kept my Buick. Yes, you should have. Stick with who you know and who you love and who you can trust. That makes a big difference when it comes to doing business in the car business. Okay, I'll take my last break. I'll be back here in just a minute. So I had such a great experience yesterday. I've got this 1934 Ford Model 40 Deluxe Phaeton. It's a convertible four-door on my showroom floor. And in the boot, as they say in England, the trunk, there is a set of side curtains. So it has a convertible top, but it has no windows, okay? No roll-up windows at all. There's no glass except for the windshield and the very small little back glass that's in the back of the convertible top. So you got to install these side curtains. Well, I got them all out of the bag, and there's I would say 12 different pieces. And it's like putting together a puzzle. And I said, wait a minute. I'm gonna call my buddy, John Lingo. Now, John is 94 years old. He is 4 years older than this car. But I know that he kind of sits at home, and I mean, he's still amazing what he can do. He can still get out and drive, and he's sharp as a tack. And I said, I'm going to call him and let him figure this out with me. I thought that would be fun, and I thought it would be something that he would enjoy. So I called him. I said, John, I need your help. I said, I've got this 34 Ford, and I cannot figure out these side curtains. I'll be down there in a few minutes. Do you think he was just kind of waiting for something to do? Well, he came down, and we looked at it, and he figured out where everything went and showed me how all the different support rods go in the door. I was just scared to death I was going to scratch the paint or hurt something. And then he got tired of standing, so he said, you got a chair I can sit in? So we sat there together, and we just talked about old cars. And he talked about that Ford, and he talked about the 1930 model, which he was a jeweler, and he operated a jewelry store down on Depot Street in Greenville, Tennessee for many years. And he did pretty well. And he retired at the age of 52. And he's 94 now. So he's had a nice, long retirement, and he actually built the complete body of a Model A Ford in his basement. Now, he didn't use a hammer and just get a bunch of steel hammer. He had those English wheels that they use. He did it the old-fashioned way, and you should see that car. I mean, he built from the firewall back, he built everything. The doors, the floor pan, the very back of the car, and the curves and the different things that he had to fashion with the tools that he had in the basement of his house. Unbelievable. But, he's from the greatest generation, the World War II generation. He's a little young for World War II, but he was in the Korean conflict, and he ex-military, and just a fascinating guy. But, there are people in your life probably, or you may be one of them, that has a lot of information in that head. And sometimes you just have to be invited to let it loose or to pull it out and, help somebody. So find somebody that's old and make them feel useful. Get them to help you do something even if you don't need their help. Now, in this case, I needed his help because I couldn't figure it out. But he saw it. He told me exactly where everything went. And then we sat there beside the car and just talked about old cars, talked about his history in Greenville, and just an amazing life. And it's all because I just decided to give him a call. So pick up the phone, call somebody, call me if you need me, 423-552-2020. I do have a new toll-free number. Yeah, I did it. It's 866-CAR-ANSWER. That's 866-CAR-ANSWER. I don't think you have to dial the E and the R at the end. It's kind of weird, but you can use that one if you can't remember my other number. Well, thanks for listening to this edition of My Car Guru, and I'll see you on the next one.